I'll be gone, and you will teach somebody else about the things you once wished for, and you will know it is time, it is time to hold this very moment.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Artist Talks. My name is Anton Valbauer. In today's episode we will meet exciting, inspiring artist, young, upcoming and uprising choreographer Emese Nagy. She has been creating original works since 2014. Before we begin, a quick reminder to click a like button underneath this video, which will help us to reach a bigger audience here on YouTube. Will allow our community grow even further. Thank you. And let's begin.
Hi.
Hello,
Hey.
hello. First of all, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be tortured by me this evening. It means a lot and it's a pleasure to meet you. I always start from beginning. When and how you met dance in your life?
When? I have no idea, actually. But I think I was doing, 5 or 6 sports at the same time when I was a kid. In the same place at the same time, all the time. Doing sport, tennis, football, anything you can imagine. So I think this pleasure of movement, everything happened very early on. And my parents took me many times to the theater, many places around Budapest. Also my teachers in elementary school, if I think back. So I was exposed to dance in this way and I was mesmerized. You can imagine all these big stages and stuff. And I actually wanted to be an actress or wanted to do acting, not actress. And then I got into acting and then we have movement classes, and we were doing Book of the Jungle and I was this monkey dancing all the time. And I think somehow, doing goofy, silly dance, I got to love it. Yeah. And then, I was doing it as a hobby for a long time. And one day my mom opened this women's magazine, whatever, like what women read.
Yeah. What women read. Yeah.
I don't know, but and there was this ad for a musical school, for musical dance, And then I went and I'm here now, basically.
When did this silly, goofy dance became really serious for you?
I think I was around 18 or 19 when there was this choreographer who saw other potential in me. And I'm still, until this day, I'm very grateful. I had this dyed blonde hair, like Pink, the singer. I looked like I was all over the place. But he saw something that could, he work on. And I was, 19 or something. And after that, I grew my hair long. I was diving in mud, dancing in dirt. And things changed, basically.
Was there any special challenges that you experienced on yourself as a young dancer becoming into, when it became your profession?
Yeah, a lot. But because I was doing the Hungarian Dance Academy, the BA, MA program, very dedicated. But the way I learned dancing was through all these, being an apprentice or dancer in companies. So I would actually say that learning it from working on it and not just sitting and learning. I remember two things that were such a hardship. One is that I was given this feedback all the time that I'm too ambitious. Emese, beautiful, very good, but don't be so ambitious. No. And I had no idea what I was 20 something. Why? How will I be the best dancer ever, or anything, if I'm not ambitious? Or why do I get this feedback all the time? I couldn't understand. And still I'm a bit skeptic, let's say, but I think now I know. I wanted it so much. I was so passionate that somehow I just didn't give room to listening what's happening. And I think that was this trying to fight this ambition in me as a young dancer was a huge obstacle and difficulty. And one more, there was this one master in the Hungarian Dance Academy, and I was terrified of improvisation. I was coming from musical, I learned the steps, I mastered the steps. And here came improvisation, and I loved it so much, but I was so afraid to express myself. So, I had this anxiety, huge one. And this one master in the university said here comes Emese, the cliche factory. And it hurt my soul. If she listens, I hope, no, but now I learned a lot from it, and actually I'm grateful for this comment, because now in the last 5 years I did nothing but improvisation. I cannot fix steps anymore. This is what I love, what I do, and I think it's because I wanted to prove her wrong, that I'm not a cliche factory and I don't come with prepared steps for improv classes. But this was also something that was a huge, I still feel the weight on my chest when I think about it, but anyways.
So does that interest in improvisation later translated in interest in choreography, or how that happened?
Actually, choreography happened because I didn't find my world in Budapest. There are modern dance companies, neoclassical, also contemporary ones, but I was maybe not mature enough for some of the projects that were happening. And I had a very particular, every year, I had a very particular vision of who I am. I changed it every year. Now I'm this dancer, and now I'm that dancer. I love Crystal Pike. No, I love Hofesh. No, I love Batsheva. No, I love Wim van de Kibus. Every year I was different. Okay. So it was very hard for me to connect and stay with one thing. And choreography, creating basically came out of necessity, because I had really nobody to dance to, let's say. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, I had things, but I stayed no longer than a year in every place, and then I had to go, and then I had to keep exploring. And I started exploring this because maybe I was bored, let's say. So I didn't have this passion to start creating, I just wanted to dance. I wanted to move. If it's choreography, I do choreography. If it's lighting on a stage for a dance show, I do the lighting. So I just wanted to be close to dancing. That's it.
In these circumstances, were there work that you would consider your first choreography?
Actually, I was 24, and it was a huge deal because it happened in the Hungarian State Opera. It happened there. Yeah, it was 2014. I was 24 years old, and I was working with ballet dancers mainly, and me in the same dance piece. So somehow, I got this opportunity, this commission, and it was something, I don't know, but I think the first I would consider my own was Springboard, that it was only me entering this room full of beautiful Juilliard graduates. I was shaking and then I had to come across and do it. So,
Was it terrifying?
The first day, yes. No, the first minute. And then, these people, they're so passionate. At Springboard was amazing. I have to say, for everybody who wants to get I don't know, a big push in dancing, just in your soul, how much you get from it. You know, after the first rehearsal, almost all of them came to me like, Emese, oh, it was so good, I love you, I love it. So many positive feedback that after the fifth or the sixth person, I told them, guys, I'm coming from Eastern Europe. My masters told me, Emese, every day, wake up, go into the bathroom, look into the mirror and tell yourself your shit. Basically, that was their push. So I'm coming from this environment. So all this, but I love it, but give me some time to just adjust, you know.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Yeah. Phew.
And then jump into Biennale Venezia. How was it to create an original work for such a big festival and institute?
My heart aches and it saddens me to say this, but maybe just because it's so big, it's so rigid in many terms, you know, how institutions are. And it's something I also told the organizers. It was very hard, actually. In many ways, it was the coronavirus still. Also, it was in all the security measures, you know, no touching, nobody could go close to each other. Also, the piece I created, you know, it was almost composition work because you cannot have relations. I mean, it was a huge challenge. So I don't want to be just negative about it. It was a huge challenge. And one thing I discovered about myself was, I don't know if you know this feeling, you know, that, I have this amazing opportunity, a big commission. Okay, so you think everything out in your living room. I had the whole piece figured out. During the pandemic, in my bed in Budapest, this will be the piece. And I arrived with my book. So guys, and nothing worked. Aww. Nothing I planned worked. No improvisation tasks I figured out. I don't know, somehow the feelings I got from the whole place. And I had to change like this from one day to the other. And okay, new piece. Let's see. And then the whole thing came out of nowhere, which I never done before. You know, I always at least have one idea. So, as Marie Chouinard said, the director, she was like, guys, be inspired by Venice, look around in the city, la 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 la, la la la. And I was, oh my God, why, how? And then, so it was a huge evolution of how to create from scratch and using the people you have and see in everyone what I can use. But at the end, I think we got something like interesting one. What I realized and what I'm in right now is this almost like a burnout, you know. I can be positive all the time and talk about my career that is just jolly fun and it's beautiful and I'm dancing all the time, but I'm pretending all the time that yes, I can. Yes, Anton. Yeah. Yes, the world. I can do it. Of course, this and that, this production. Of course, I can dance and choreograph at the same time and also be the manager and the ticket sales person and, you know, all this at once. And I also faced this as a challenge 3 years ago. And I also ended up in hospital because of stress. So a lot of things happened. So I think this whole burning out and how much we push ourselves, young dancers, to be able to dance, you know, or at least have an exposure. And the whole piece basically was wrapped around this exhaustion, but we're so happy because I show that I'm happy, but I'm exhausted basically. And this happiness industry, you know.
Yeah, the happiness industry.
Yeah, that was the piece with voice, with shouting, with crying, with many things. Yeah.
So now I understand the title Venice Fanatic.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. This fanatic thing, but imagine the what is this? The costume also came out of I was, you know, in Venice. Everybody sells everything, you know, merchandise. I love Venice t-shirt, Venice hat, everything Venice And I was so, but it's annoying now that all beautiful cities are filled with
merchandise,
with money, business all the time. So I decided, okay, I might as well just dress them in these shitty clothes and merchant. Yeah. So this also came, this over the top showing off something. Yeah.
What is Emese and why it exists?
Because I feel very much alone in this whole business of being choreographer, dancer, alone in the studio. You have to work on it on yourself. On yourself alone. We're alone, I have to say. But I still believe that I want to do works with my friends, with my soulmates even. It would be so nice. And you hear all these stories how Pina Bausch started, or also in Hungary, these myths, so many that, we started from nothing, but our friendship held it together and we sustained and we stayed together. So this was my idea that, okay, here are two of my best friends, Kristóf Várnagy and Jessica Schmidt. I love them. Probably if we start something together, and they inspired me a lot, I think we inspired each other a lot. If we start something together, it will remain.
Yeah.
Because, friendship is the thing. So we started, and actually one thing happened, and it was a huge opportunity from Trafo, which is, for me, the Mecca in Budapest. Like, it's a very prestigious place, a contemporary house, and they invited us to create an evening. So we were about to have this debut big for Emese, but we needed a name. And I don't know actually why I thought we need a name. So I heard Emese so much in Israel. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it in Hebrew, it means what is that, or what, or something like this. But I heard it so much and I loved how it sounded. So we created it together and had Trafo and had other events. But Emese in this form had to come to an end, let's say. But exists because we loved each other.
Okay, so and now I'm gonna read you something that I found online somewhere about Emese and see how you feel about this. Emese has resolved to make contemporary dance cool again. They are young, sexy, and passionate. They know exactly how to drag the audience into the world. How that makes you feel?
I mean, we were badass, that's true. But we were also, we were very much on social media, you know. I was like, okay, but actually it happened just before this Trafo event, because it's a huge theater. We wanted to fill the theater. So also you have to have some strategy how you do it. In our own ways, I think we were pioneers. And in some ways of engaging, opening up, engaging other types of audiences. Everybody was such an individual, even though it was only the three of us. I think it felt like a huge ensemble of not just egos, but all these ideas and everything.
What is, in your opinion, hardest thing about being a choreographer?
Being alone. Because now it's my personal, situation. Because because you are alone in front of people, of course, even though they are your collaborators. I do it because I want to share it. I want to share all this experience. And I find myself lonely somehow, sometimes in this world, and it's hard.
What is the most rewarding?
You cannot imagine. If I'm hooked on something, I cannot sleep. Also, now I'm creating a piece. My eyelid is like this all the time because I'm thinking because I feel this huge world of possibilities, this playground and all the ideas. So it's very rewarding to get, once you get into this place and you find out how much things you can dig out. So it's something very, very rewarding, also very tiring. You need to sleep, but yeah, maybe the playground of possibilities. You know, I don't know if you feel it, but I feel this production line a lot, that we have to produce, you know, because the whole system supports new productions. I mean, from where I come from, it's all the time. You have to create a new piece. That's why you get supported. That's how you can sustain, make ends meet, blah, blah, blah. But you cannot all the time find new ideas and produce all the time like in a machine. You know, you're a human being. I think somehow we should shift the focus from the art piece, the dance piece or the painting, to the whole practice, what we are doing, get back to the practice, the dancing, the feeling of it, and engaging, and not to the, you know, don't think about the artist, don't think about me as a dancer, but more how the community can survive, how I can engage somehow. Of course, in dance, it happened long time ago that, you know, site-specific performances emerged in the 70s in the United States. Or of course, it started this whole transformation earlier. But maybe, you know, we could have the holidays in the theaters during the winter, and then we can have the season when it's good weather and we don't have to go back and sit and watch, but go out and do other things or engage in other ways, maybe to nurture these values that dance has, you know, and pass it on to audiences and engage with people. And maybe not certainly in a black box, and get back to everything as it was. Once we had this idea that it would be so nice to create a dance training for politicians. Really, and to go to politicians' offices, you know, for a daily training and make them hooked on it. And finally, they would realize how important dopamine is and all these things that dance gives.
It sounds like a brilliant idea. Infect them with the
yeah.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. No, really. Why dance is important?
If we started this politician training, let's get back to this idea.
Yeah.
I think, of course, for me, I'm not saying my job is my identity, not at all. I have other things. But of course, it's a mantra, it's a daily thing. This is how I engage with everything. Huge celebration for me, joy, everything that dance holds. It's a way of structuring my life for me. I think dance has, or movement has, such a huge power, like transformative power, is crucial, it's important, and it gives so much value to your life. And I think if you really start implementing dance from the very, I don't know, from kindergarten, but really movement and experiencing the flesh and bones and touch and roll on each other and, you know, all these things, I think it would create, maybe it's very utopistic, but, you know, much happier people who are embodying their souls and everything. So I don't know, in general, it's such a huge power. And all our human values can just grow with this, with dance, with joy, with the whole sharing of it. So
thank you so much for participating, and it's been amazing to meet you and be infected by your positive spirit and energy.
That it's such a honor and pleasure and everything, you know, to be exposed. So I'm very lucky, actually, and very happy for this opportunity, for whatever comes out of it. It's because we keep art alive in any way. We're talking about it, we're laughing at it, we share stories, or I was sharing, of course. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you found it inspiring. Have a look at our Artist Talks playlist here on YouTube, where you can find all the previous interviews we have done so far.